Let's get YAAC and the D75 working together.
Stick around and we'll get right to it.
Real quick, before we get going, I've got to give a shout out to these guys. They're my latest patrons over on Patreon. If you'd like to help support the channel, I'll leave a link to Patreon down in the description below. All right, before we head over to the computer and start configuring YAAC, we do need to make sure that a few settings are correct on the radio. First off, make sure your GPS is on. That's menu item 400. Next, we need to make sure that the Bluetooth is on. That's menu item 930. The USB function needs to be set to COM plus AF/IF, menu item 980. The GPS needs to be set to USB output at menu item 981, and the KISS needs to be set to Bluetooth, menu item 983. Finally, make sure your radio is set to 144.390 in the US, and make sure that KISS 12 shows on the radio. Okay, so now that we've made sure all of the settings are correct on the radio, the first thing we want to do is verify that the GPS is configured correctly. To do this, you're going to need a USB-C cable coming from your radio to the USB port on your computer. And the reason we want to do it this way is because we can't get both GPS and TNC data over the Bluetooth connection at the same time. So we're going to utilize the USB-C cable for GPS data, and then we will grab the TNC data in YAAC over Bluetooth. All right, so once you've got everything connected up, the first command we're going to run is going to be ls/dev/serial/by-id. Go ahead and press return, and you should see the D75 listed there. Provided you do, then we know that the computer is seeing the radio. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to, from the start menu, I'm going to look up GPS update tool. Now, if you don't have this tool installed, you can install this with 7.3 Linux. So this makes it super easy to reconfigure any GPS device. Once the GPS update tool is open, I'm going to come down to USB and I'm going to click continue. It's going to tell me to connect it. It actually says connect to the Pi. That's leftover from days gone by. But go ahead and click continue here. And then make sure that you're seeing in this box the exact same thing that we saw in the previous box. If you do, you can go ahead and click OK. Otherwise, you can use the drop down if you've got multiple devices that you may need to choose from. Once you've got that, we'll just click OK. And it'll let us know that the GPS has been updated, and we can just click exit right here. Now, to verify that we're getting GPS data from the terminal, we can just run cgps. And you should see GPS data in this window. Assuming that you do, just press Q to get out of this and return to the terminal window. Now, to get started in configuring the TNC, we do need to bind the computer's Bluetooth to the radio's Bluetooth. So first thing we're going to do to get started with that is run HCI tool space scan. Now, before I press enter here, I am going to go over to the radio and put the radio in pairing mode for Bluetooth. Once the radio is in pairing mode, we can go ahead and press return on this particular command, and it should find the D75 and return our MAC address. And it did just that. If yours by chance does not see your D75 on the first scan, go ahead and run that scan tool again. Just make sure to remember to put your radio in Bluetooth pairing mode. Now that I have this MAC address, though, I'm going to highlight that, right-click, and copy. The next command we want to run is going to be sudo space rfcom space bind space /dev/rfcom 0 space. We're going to paste in our MAC address, then we're going to give it a space and a 2. And the reason we use that 2 out there at the end is because the TNC data that we want to capture is using channel 2 on the Bluetooth. And I did a bit more in-depth on these commands in the GPS video. I'll leave a link to that down in the description below if you want to go back and watch that for a little bit more in depth here. Let's go ahead and press return, and we should just see it go right back to the command line. And that lets us know that the Bluetooth on the computer is bound to the Bluetooth on the radio, which is exactly where we want to be. At this point, let's go ahead and open up YAAC. Now, I'm using pretty much a brand new instance of YAAC here, so I don't have anything configured, and that's what it's letting me know, that no APRS ports are configured. And it says, would I like some help? I'm going to choose no here. Let's go up to the main menu, and let's click on File, and let's come down to Configure, and let's choose Expert Mode. Once this window appears, we're going to come over to the Ports tab, and then we're going to come down to Add. The first thing we're going to add, let me get this window drug over here. First thing we're going to add is going to be the GPS data. And we want to do that by coming down and clicking on GPSD. And you can leave these settings at default. They should work fine unless you've made some changes in the background. In that case, you're probably not watching this tutorial video. I'll go ahead and click Save here. And you should see this in black right now. If it's in red, then there's some sort of error. You need to go back and figure out what that is before we go to the next step. Assuming that yours is in black here and not in red, we want to click Add again. This time we're going to be adding a serial TNC. For the device name, we'll click the drop-down box and we're going to choose RFCOM 0. Leave the baud rate at 9600, and let's go ahead and give this a call sign. I'll just use KM4ACK-14. Now, the rest of these settings are going to depend on exactly what you want to do and what your needs are. For this particular case, I'm going to leave transmit disabled because all I want to do is see data being displayed from the radio on my map. If you want something more advanced, you can go ahead and enable transmit mode right here, which would allow you to do things like send messages from YAAC that are transmitted over the radio. One other thing to note, there is a check mark right here, or an option to put a check mark for a workaround for a Kenwood MCP issue. I haven't had any need to utilize that so far. So we're just going to leave the settings right where they are and click Save. Again, we should see the serial TNC in black. If it's red, note the D75 connected up in the top right-hand corner. That is something you should see at this point when we connect that serial TNC. Also, if you look at your radio, your Bluetooth indicator should be blue. If by chance this is red, we need to solve that problem. So go back, walk through the steps again, and make sure that the serial TNC shows up in black. Once we've got all of that done, we can just click Close. Now, I'm going to grab another HT and go ahead and transmit a beacon from that APRS-enabled HT. And we should see that show up on the map as soon as the beacon transmits. And you can see right there, it has loaded into the map. Now you know how to configure YAAC and get all of that APRS data flowing to the map. If you found today's information helpful, be sure to give us a thumbs up before you head off. We will see you guys on the next one. Until then, 7-3.